friends, this week on the Daily Dose, we have been talking about how not to be our own worst enemy. And today I want to talk to you about something very near and dear to my heart, something that I have wrestled with in my own life. And so I'm making the assumption that if I've wrestled with it in my life, that you have probably wrestled with it too. What I've wrestled with is who I am and how I am to be true to myself. Who is Angie? Maybe you haven't wrestled with that, but maybe you're wrestling with who you are. As I've mentioned to you before, I moved a lot when I was a kid. I went to 5 elementary schools, 3 high schools, and 1 really terrible junior high school, which I think is probably the truth for most people. Through these moves, I found myself feeling kind of more like a chameleon than a kid. I felt like I was always changing my skin in order to fit into the new environment and into the new crowd. I mean, it's true that I went from a Minnesota Vikings fan to a Dallas Cowboys fan overnight. I know, that's the fastest that has ever happened. I moved from saying y'all in Georgia to you betcha in Eden Prairie, Minnesota just overnight. And I moved from calling a drinking fountain a bubbler when I lived in Wisconsin to referring to all sodas as Coke when I lived in the South. You see, for me, this chameleon-esque change that I was doing, for me, it was kind of a survival mechanism. As the constant new kid, I would do whatever it took to fit into my surroundings so I could just make a couple of friends and not stick out. So I could sort of blend into my surroundings. And as I grew older, I felt deep pressure to more definitively define myself, to see where exactly I fit in. So you see, we live in a world that loves to put labels on us and where we feel pressure to do the same, to put these labels on us. And if we don't know who we are, well, we can just do a Google search to sort of find out. We can find a nice survey or a quiz that will help us figure out who we are. Let's take fashion for a second. Right now, if you wanted to, you can take a quiz that will help you answer if you are boho chic or preppy cool. And then it will show you what you're supposed to wear in order to conform to that particular ideal. And we do this with politics, I think, too. We subscribe to one way of being, either Democrat or Republican, and then we assume that people then associate with all of it. But what if you believe in some parts of both party platforms sometimes? What if it's not exactly clear for you and you find yourself to be fiscally conservative and anti-abortion, but then you also think that women should probably have a choice in what they choose and you think that healthcare is a right? So what does that make you? Does that mean that it's more gray for you? Independent? I mean, who really votes independent? And our world is so focused on binaries right now, on having these things defined. It doesn't seem to know what to do with us when we feel like we're both this and this, when maybe we're both boho chic and preppy cool, or both Democrat and Republican. I mean, think about it. It's true for our home decorating style. Are you farmhouse or are you modern? And your personality, are you introverted or extroverted? Or your identity, are you country or city or suburb? We all feel this pressure to conform to boxes, from our clothes, to our homes, to our politics, to our personalities, to our values, to our friend groups, and to our language. But what if instead we just stop with that and maybe we realize that we are both and? What if we spent less time trying to define and find ourselves and more time actually seeing how God defines us? I think we have this assumption that who we are comes from within us, and that all we have to do is dig deep enough in ourselves to discover it, to try different things until we find our thing, whatever that might be. And let's be honest, then as soon as we find our thing, then maybe we can be happy. And parents, let's be honest, we do this with our kids too. I know I've done it with my kids. We try and help them find what their thing is. Is it hockey or is it dance? Is it reading or video games? And we spend so much time and energy and money trying to help them find the thing that will define them, as if they have just one. What if we spent less time trying to help our kids define themselves and more time helping them see how God defines them? If you look in the Bible, you'll see a trend with all of the characters in the Bible. None of them set off in a search to go and find themselves. None of them define themselves at all, because it doesn't come from within. Instead, it comes from outside. Instead, the definition comes from God. Take Peter and Andrew, fishermen by trade only because that's what their families did, until Jesus came and told them who they were, told them that they were disciples, that they were fishers of men. Or Saul, he thought he was a Pharisee and a Christian persecutor by trade, until Jesus came and looks at Saul and says, no, from the outside, Paul, you are a great evangelist. Or Gideon, he saw himself as the last, the lowest, the least of his clan, until God shows up and says, no, Gideon, that's not who you are. You are a mighty warrior. So friends, if you want to be true to yourself, it doesn't come from inside you or for you finding or defining yourself. If you want to be true to yourself, believe what God has to say about you and who you are from the outside. Things like Psalm 57:2, I cry out to God the Most High, God who fulfills his purpose for me. Or Zephaniah 3, the Lord your God will take great delight in you. He will renew you with his love and rejoice over you with singing. Or Psalm 139, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. These messages come from outside us into us and not the other way around. So if you know somebody today, somebody who is trying to not be their own worst enemy, somebody who's trying to define themselves from the inside out as opposed to the outside in, would you do me a favor? Would you go ahead and share this message with them? Would you go ahead, if you're on Facebook, go ahead and share this onto your personal page. And if you're on YouTube, would you hit the bell and subscribe? If you're joining us on cable access, thanks so much for joining us this week. We will see you next week.
Heaven thundered, and the world was born. Life begins and ends in the dust you form. Faith commanded, and the mountains moved. Fear is losing ground to our hope in you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh, freedom conquered, all our chains undone. Sin defeated, Jesus is overcome. Mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. Darkness was denied when the stone was gone. 1, 2, 3, 4. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh, unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh, nothing shall be impossible. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh, unstoppable God, let your glory go on.